This is a Clouds weather alert.
Meteorologist Casey Cloud coming on the air right now on this Sunday afternoon because we have some breaking news out of the Tampa Bay area in terms of temperature information. I know if you know about meteorology here in the state of Florida, you've known, over the years here that Tampa had never hit officially at the airport or wherever the official records are kept 100 degrees. A lot of that because of the influence of the Gulf water and just the overall pattern here meteorologically, just not quite letting that happen, even though, other spots here getting to 100 multiple times in history. But that has just changed here within the last hour. Officially now, Tampa has hit 100 degrees for the first time ever since the records started getting kept there in 1890. I know, maybe not at the exact same place, but official records for Tampa kept since 1890 there, and the official site there, wherever, and wherever a designated had never hit 100 degrees until now. It happened around 3:30 this afternoon. I know it's kind of hard to believe that it's taken, this long. I mean, going 135 years here. With these to get to 100 degrees, but that has happened there in the thermometer in Tampa at Tampa International Airport there around 3:30. It takes a few minutes to get some of that information in, they're making sure, what's going on here looks accurate. But they put out the tweet there. I know the Daily Climate Report will be out in a little bit, but by all indications, it seems that they officially reached 100 degrees here for the first time ever in Tampa there, at that one site. Another areas down there have hit it before, but at that one site there, the official site, wherever that is over the years, that's been designated, the official site there, Hillsborough County, hitting 100 degrees for the first time ever. I know as you're looking other areas, Lakeland, they've, hit over 100 before, but right at the coast of that Gulf influence, the temperatures, not 100 and not, in the 90s there really either, ever as we're looking at things. But as you're looking at the scenario, that kind of keeps them down just a little bit, depending on what it is. But coupled with the overall pattern, I know they weren't really maybe forecasting that down there from what I've seen, because of the indications I looked at. I kind of thought about this on Friday, looking at some stuff. They were a few degrees high there, the forecast for that area. Looking at the models, it was not really expected to be the story that it'd actually get to 100 here, that it would be, a good bit easier to achieve up toward our viewing area. But I know we have seen in some spots, not a lot. I know I forecast 100 today and 101 tomorrow. There is now an extreme heat warning for the first time ever toward a coastal Camden and coastal Glen, but that's just, a little bit about nomenclature, because as we're looking north, southeast, Florida with that, because it's a situation where they just changed this year the terminology from excessive heat warning to extreme heat warning. But this is here, what we're looking at on the screen is truly historic. 135 years, we're looking back since the record started getting kept there, April of 1890. Tampa has officially reached 100 degrees for the first time ever. Now, the last check, they're down back to 99 again, and they were up there earlier on. They dropped some. I kind of thought, well, maybe, it's not going to happen because of just the different influences here meteorologically, that they wouldn't quite get there, because 99 had been the highest ever, the all-time record, but now 100, they're in Tampa, within the last hour to hit that mark for the first time ever. Truly historic as we're looking there toward that area in Hillsborough County. So again, as we get back over to the map, I guess you'll take that any day of the week, though, over, what you could have in terms of a hurricane like we had with Milton last year or something like that. But still, it's a big deal here in the weather center. As you're looking at things, you got to be making sure you're practicing heat safety. Now, you see that 99 there right now. I'll put the marker on here. That's where that is. So it has dropped a little. The last update in our system here is from 353. It dropped to 99, but there's a heat index of 111. But keep it on the wide map for a second, because one thing really stands out here, and that is a Cecil site there in the Duval County. Now, it can always read a little low, a little high, but it's based on the geography here and the light there. I know a lot of times it's pretty close in the winter to what we have here east of Stark. we're not quite to this right now, but they're 104, the actual air temperature at Cecil Field there in toward southwestern Duval County as of that last observation at 350 with a heat index, as I'll switch it over here, of 122. So it feels like 122 there at Cecil Field. I know they always read a little cool, a little warm, just based on the overall geography, their topography, and the like. I know they're 99 at the official site for Jacksonville International Airport as a 356 there. The last update on that. You see 99 toward Jacksonville Hurlon Airport, 99 there in toward the White House, a naval outlying field area, 96 there, Craig Municipal Airport. I know we've hit 100 in Jacksonville before. You know, it doesn't happen that often. I know we're talking about it on our update late Thursday, 101 or so happens about every 10 years, give or take, you know, toward that part of our area on average. I mean, that's not the exact thing, but just the patterns looking back at the record. So it happened, you know, occasionally, and it may happen here today with the updates coming on in at Jacksonville Airport. I know here, as we look, you know, we are looking around Stark, around Gainesville, 99 in Gainesville at the Gainesville Airport. Some of these spots could have definitely hit 100 here, you know, for a bit. We'll find out with the daily climate report update, or they could still hit it. I mean, 104 Cecil really stands out. I may want to go ahead and I might go ahead and look at some of those records as we're live on the air with you guys on the fly here this afternoon, because that's noteworthy. I know we're down to 97 degrees to Stark. We were at 99 not that long ago, but looking at my thermometer behind the scenes, we're at 97 right now. So that's kind of an interesting point here to make. But you know, we haven't hit 100 today. We've hit 99 here east of Stark. Just looking back at my thermometer, we were at 99 here only within the last 10 minutes, so we dropped a couple degrees. So we'll see if we can get up there, you know, little boundaries and just little microscale details here, clouds, and you know, just the overall scenario here can kind of drop you down a little bit here as we're looking at things, as we're tracking things. And now 97 degrees in eastern Bradford County, still very dangerous heat advisory type conditions. But what a contrast from January here. I know it was just here in Bradford, we're at east of Stark, just tiny, but look at those little, you know, white dots. Those were snow flurries, snow grains back there in January, and now instead we have 97 degrees. So that is, you know, just extraordinary here, but that's how it works. A lot of times in meteorology, that was the peak of winter for us. This is the peak of summer here as we're looking and as we're tracking things. You know, of course, up in toward the Albany area, you know, they had half foot of snow, which is remarkable. You know, just, you know, outlandish, to be quite honest. I mean, probably more outlandish than what we had with that temperature finally getting to 100 this afternoon in the Tampa area, officially on the site. And they're 98 right now in Albany, 97 Tallahassee, 97 in Perry here. As we're looking at things, this is the actual air temperatures, not, you know, combining how it feels. When we do that, you see we have a bunch of triple digits in terms of how it feels to the skin here. As we're looking, as we're tracking things here, it's just, you know, interesting to see as we're monitoring the scenario. I know we're at 96.7 here. Used to start with the air temperature right now. Feels like 114 where we're at specifically. A little bit more of that moisture in the air sometimes upon in close proximity. But as we go ahead and keep you up to date here on this situation, I know sometimes, you know, the heat, you know, you think, well, it's not a big deal. In some ways, you know, sure, compared to a hurricane, maybe not, or, you know, a tornado, but it still can be deadly. The numbers, you know, over the years are very significant with the heat and fatalities, sadly. So even though it's kind of a, you know, just a meteorological fact here about the heat getting so warm there toward, you know, the area in Hillsborough County, and, you know, just across the state looking at these numbers, I mean, it can be very serious, and you got to make sure you're checking that back seat of your car as we're looking. We're going to avoid tragedy. I know we have John B. watching on YouTube. He says it's hot down there in Pinellas County. So as we're just looking at things, as we're tracking things here, that's over on YouTube, a comment there. But as we go ahead and continue to give you guys the very latest on what's going on, I wanted to check as we look at this, sometimes you can get showers that pop up. That's, welcome relief here from the heat. Let me see if we can check some climate information. Now, I wanted to check something, whatever I had available here, because 104 is getting really up there into Ward Duval County, Cecil Field area. I mean, that really gets up there for sure as we're looking. I don't think I can check Cecil directly here. I can check the area, but I was hoping I could just check because 104, that can't have happened that many times there at Cecil Field over the years here meteorologically. I mean, we've had, that site always read a little high, a little low, but it's because of the openness here in general. I mean, during the winter, the numbers match up really well with what we're at here east of Stark and Bradford County. Not exactly matching up right now, but we're at 96 now here east of Stark, so good little difference. It might have dropped since this update here because ours, our numbers are instantaneous, what I'm looking at behind the scenes, but they are 3:50 p.m., so that's a little old at this point. That's just how these work here. Let me see what I have on a couple other sites here that I can look at. Let me go ahead and check a couple more things here. I'm going to throw up another graphic here if we can while I'm doing this, though. Bear with me. So again, that's the latest here on our sensor here east of Stark as we're looking at the situation. But what I want to look at here, I'm going to check a couple other sites. So let me go ahead and check here the Keystone site. I don't have a reading, unfortunately. That's what I figured. It wasn't set up in our system. We do have also the WeatherStem site there, the sheriff's office, and let's see what they have there. They actually have 99. They're actually a little warmer. Earlier they were a little cooler. So that just shows you the microscale details can have an impact right now. So, it's 96 there in eastern Bradford County. But in central Bradford County, it's 99 degrees. That's just, one spot will be different than another. But that's my sensor, 96, what you're seeing. But they're 99 at the sheriff's office right now here in Bradford County. So that's according to the latest WeatherStem observation. As we're looking at things, as we're tracking things here in toward the weather center. So very important to keep in mind here. Just going to check some information here, see if we can find how high they've gotten. Have they hit 100 there? I'm going to find out here if I can. Bear with me. I'm going to check a data file here real quick. Not 100% sure. You kind of sometimes have to look around a little bit for this, but 99.0 right now, it's definitely possible they've gotten a 99.5, which would have reached 100 there with the maximum, temperature here, because it rounds up like that. But again, 96 in eastern Bradford, where we're at, we got 99. That's not that long ago on that site. As we go ahead and keep giving you the latest updates, I know, there's different microscale details play a role. Let me see if I can switch to another source here. Again, we don't have to cut in for heat very often, that's for sure. I mean, those freezes and the like can be, more disruptive in some ways because, sometimes with the heat you can have roads buckle or some isolated power outages, but those freezes, you have to run that water, depending on where you are, rural area, that's what, you're doing to protect those pipes. Sometimes it's hard freezes, those plants can be damaged or destroyed. So, sometimes that can even have a bigger impact than the extreme heat as you're, depending on if you're in good air conditioning or not, because this probably has a little bit more tendency to be deadly because at least in the cold you can cover up, but in the heat it's harder, to protect yourself if you don't have air conditioning / heating, as depending on what time of year it is. But as you're looking here, we're watching the boundaries, you just see kind of that old ground clutter pattern right now for the most part. You see some of the different readings in the yellow. See some scattered showers there in northern Levy County there, some accent. Down further south in the county, other area, some moisture, same Levy, Dixie County line. Any of those can cool you off a little bit. I saw some lightning, I still see it as they go down toward central Florida and northern Polks, kind of in that area, and also parts of Osceola County here this afternoon. You see some of these different readings. This was the last official one on the METAR coming through in our source, but again, the report was that they did get 100 there with the actual reading at about 3:30 8:30 this afternoon. So again, that's a really big deal there, obviously. Something most folks thought, well, maybe it'll not really happen here, for many years to come. But it happened this afternoon about an hour ago. And that is the breaking news there. The breaking news that Tampa officially reached 100 degrees for the first time in recorded history since the records, were getting kept there in 1890. So again, that's a really big deal. They do have some thunderstorm action though popping up there, as you can see. This will start to have an influence. That's the thing too. A lot of times you have, this doesn't measure moisture that the air, just air temperatures. So normally you have storms maybe that'll just cool you off before you get to 100. But it's up here where they got to 100 just a little while ago. 99 in the last observation that came through. But you see all these thunderstorms down here. A lot of times you get some of that before then, and then you don't get there. That's what's always happened. Something's happened to always keep them under that 100-degree mark until today. They got there for the first time in recorded meteorological history there, though, since the official records were kept, or started getting kept there in 1890. So some big breaking weather news there for sure. Historic in nature. I mean, this isn't a hurricane, this isn't a tornado. And, it's still, though, a really big deal here meteorologically. As we go ahead and keep looking at things, keep tracking the situation, let's go ahead and we'll just kind of pull on in here into the view here of the temperatures with the radar. I know there is extreme heat warning now for a couple of our counties tomorrow. Coastal Glen and coastal Camden. It's going to be from noon to 7 tomorrow. It's never happened before, the extreme heat warning. But unlike, the temperature situation, which is truly historic for Tampa, now they just changed the nomenclature on this. Normally, excessive heat warning, we get those maybe once, depending on where you're at in our area, more so Tallahassee sometimes, but once a summer on average, I would say, excessive heat warnings, but now they're called something different, an extreme heat warning, and so far it's been issued for coastal Camden and coastal Glen, already dangerous other areas, but there's even enhanced danger because the heat index could be, widespread up to 114, not just the isolated backyards like where we're at. I mean, we're at 117 degrees to dark right now on my sensor because of the more moisture in the air than other places, coupled with the hot reading, 96 right now. But you just want to make sure you drink plenty of fluid, stay in air-conditioned, room there, stay out of the sun, and check up on relatives and neighbors. Do not leave young children and pets in unattended vehicles. I'm reading this from the Weather Service in Jacksonville, but they're saying car interiors will reach lethal temperatures here in a matter of minutes. So just make sure you take extra precautions when outside. Wear lightweight and loose-fitting clothing. Try to limit strenuous activities to early morning or evening. Take action when you see symptoms of heat exhaustion and heat stroke, and to reduce heat risk there. During the outdoor work, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration recommends scheduling frequent rest breaks in shaded or air-conditioned environments, and anyone overcome by heat should be moved to a cool and shaded location. Heat stroke is considered an emergency, and in that scenario, it's, imperative to use, that telephone and call 911 in those situations. But again, as we're tracking things and as we're monitoring things here, again, we're talking about tomorrow, the highest focus of the heat danger so far looks to be Dock Junction, Sea Island, Dover Bluff, St. Simons, as well as Kingsland, Dungeness there, Country Club Estates, or Country Club Estate, I guess you call it there, Jekyll Island, and Glen Haven. So, again, as we're continuing to track this situation, continuing to monitor it, very important to keep an eye on. I'm just trying to keep you informed on this developing weather situation. I don't know, see if there's any more questions or comments from any of the viewers at home. I know we always got to watch out. There can be these occasional power outages in these type of situations, with the heat. And there are close to 5,000 folks in the dark in the state of Florida. I mean, a few of them could be from storms, depending on where you're looking. But I don't necessarily see it where this is showing it down in Pasco County right now. Let's go ahead and pull up the poweroutage.us map here. As we're looking at things, as we're tracking things, you see there, Pasco County, almost 4,000 customers in the dark. Now, Hernando, not so much, but this could be some type of, power issue here. It just got so hot that maybe something, kind of, maybe switched on off there, and that's unfortunate because the houses can get very warm, with the air off for even just a short period of time, especially for those elderly folks can be vulnerable. It is a Sunday, so hopefully more folks able to check up on people today, but still, tomorrow's going to be even a little hotter in some spots, as we've talked about with the extreme heat warning. It could be, a degree or two hotter with the heat index, getting up there to something that's even a little bit worse, depending on where you're looking here. So a few folks in Leon County without power as well. As you're tracking things, I know as we start to get into Tuesday, the moisture levels will increase enough where we have more and more storms that will keep the actual air temperature down some, but the heat index will still be a big factor, and you can't, take the situation lightly with that. So I know it's not like we're in Ohio where they're getting flash flooding concerns like in Fairfield County where there's a considerable threat there. We're getting this the heat being so prevalent here today as we're looking and as we're tracking things here. Let me go ahead and jump away from that. Here. I'm going to go ahead and pull up some traffic cameras right now. Bear with me. We're going to pull up some traffic cameras downstate where they had the extreme, reading, extraordinary reading after all these years achieved there toward Tampa. I mean, it's not to this level, but it's a little reminiscent. It's not maybe as fun, but it's a little reminiscent of those newspaper headlines in the 70s there down toward Miami when they had snow there in the 70s to hit a, mark like this. I mean, I guess it'd be a little more historic in a way, but, not as fun, obviously. As those newspaper headlines, I believe it was in 77 there, down toward areas there in South Florida with that snow event there. There's stories to get snow down there. It's a little reminiscent of that, but it's a lot different. Not as fun. I mean, the newspaper headline was, as if we had, just the biggest story ever happening there. I know we actually had snow from that event here back in 77. I'll just throw these up real quick. Photos from a relative there down toward Hampton back in 77, that event. It wasn't much snow down toward Miami as they had up here. You see this and you're saying, why is he talking about snow? It's like 100 degrees. It's not going to happen, but it's just talking about the historic nature comparisons here in some ways. So, as we're kind of, talking about that big newspaper headline in the Miami Herald, I believe it was in 77 when they had the flurries down there. It's just the idea of the historic nature of things and the meteorological comparisons here on the extremes. So, again, as we're trying to give you the latest, pull up a traffic camera near the Tampa airport there. I mean, and we'll watch, not necessarily here, but other places, we headed back in June there in Missouri, a road buckled in Cape Girardeau area. Was actually close to that when it happened, not right at it, but in the region that day there in Missouri. Moisture there and all that moisture they had earlier in the year and in the heat, and it caused the road to buckle. So we'll watch to see if some of that happens in the state here. Got to be kind of careful, but it's hard to be looking out for that necessarily. I know again the snow so historic back in the 70s there, but just to, you got to watch out for some of these roads here for sure. You just never know. One or two of these, it could just be pavement starts to have issues, or even, some type of potholes become more prevalent. We see, but this is a look around Tampa there. This is the area that had the historic heat reading of 100 earlier this afternoon. Never before achieved in history. Now, this spot's in the region, yes, but not the official meteorological site. It never hit wherever that's been over the years there for Tampa. And the official records, had never had Tampa at 100 degrees until this afternoon. That changed around 3:30 here, which, is extraordinary. Now, they're not in our viewing area, but it's such a big deal. I mean, you really don't, that's just something that you always know about Florida meteorological history, that Tampa never hit 100 degrees. Well, that changed today at about 3:30 this afternoon there for the official record keeping information, it would seem. So again, as we continue to give you guys the very latest here on the scenario, We're at 4:45 on this Sunday afternoon. I'm meteorologist Casey Cloud. It's the 27th of July, 2025 here. As we're looking at things, as we're tracking things here. And we're just trying to give you guys the very latest on things here. I know the Tampa Bay record-keeping site over the years. I'm just gonna kind of look that up here. You know, because I'm sure, you know, that's something that folks have wrote about, you know, where that's been and the like here. Because, you know, that does play a role, but in the, you know, the Gulf of Mexico plays a role, and I think Petersburg, you know, they've hit that mark before, but Tampa had not until today with the official reading. As we're tracking things here. I'm just trying to give you guys the very latest here on what's going on. Let me go ahead and zoom up here. Another source to the north. I'm going to zoom up to the north here. See some traffic cameras in northern Florida here with this heat. You know, being a story. Take you over there east of McClinney along I-10. Just kind of see some of the meteorological conditions as we're looking at things, as we're tracking things here in toward the weather center. I know no specific spots in general, but you just gotta always watch the road could buckle somewhere in one little spot of area or the other. One little road, you know, could have some issues here or there because of this extreme heat, and you just, you know, we gotta always watch out, you know, for heat-related tragedies as well, especially, you know, the back seat of your car. Do not forget your child or, you know, somebody else is vulnerable in the back seat. Don't just leave them there even for 5 or 10 minutes with the windows rolled up, because it can be lethal that quickly. The heat's just going to build, and it can be like an oven there very quickly in the vehicle. So you got to take this situation very seriously in that regard. You know, you got to take this very seriously in that regard, for sure. So, and another storyline sometimes in heat waves here. You know, sometimes, unfortunately, you know, there can be a correlation of heat waves here and crime. Sometimes, you know, I don't know if it's directly because of the heat, but sometimes crime numbers can go up a little bit. People, you know, maybe just, you know, feel the stress there in their body from the heat, and they're, you know, they're already maybe, you know, thinking about stuff, and it just puts them over the edge here, sadly. So, you know, we just gotta, you know, you gotta be thinking about that here too as you're looking and as you're tracking things here across the area. So, again, as we're trying to give you guys the very latest here, we're just trying to give you guys, you know, updates. I know sometimes summertime crime can be higher anyway, just because the days are longer and people are out more, you know, and then, you know, also younger folks, teenagers, you know, out of school and the like, that can play a role here too. But as we go ahead and look and as we track things here, let me give you another update on our Bradford County reading here where we're at here east of Stark. Give me just a moment here. I have to do some of this manually, which is a little bit, you know, maybe not ideal, but we're going to go ahead and put this up on the screen here. We've gotten a new update here on our site. It continuously updates, but I put in a system here now 97 in eastern Bradford County here in north central Florida with our reading. So that's the latest there. I know for tomorrow, as we're looking at our area as a whole, our 62 counties, we currently have coastal Camden and Glenn and George under the first ever for our area extreme heat warning. Granted, that's unlike the Tampa thing, which is truly historic in an fathomable way. That's not historic because they just changed the name of it last year and before. The excessive heat warning, now extreme heat warning. But it's the first time we've had one in our viewing circle since they changed the name from excessive to extreme. So it's noon to 7 tomorrow for coastal Camden, coastal Glen, but a lot of other areas under heated advisory again, which we've had quite a bit this summer. You know, upper end of that, some areas it could get upgraded to the warning here at some point. I don't actually see a watch though anymore for any of our areas. So right now it's looking like they're just going to kind of maybe stick, from what I've seen right now, the stick except for the 2 areas with the advisor, unless something starts to change in the model guidance here with the pattern. But, heat advisory, is really dangerous. Just got to make sure, you're drinking plenty of fluids. You stay in an air-conditioned room. Stay out of the sun. Most, often here, best you can. Check up on relatives and neighbors. Do not leave young children and pets in unattended vehicles or elderly folks. Car interior reach lethal temperatures in a matter of minutes. Also got to take extra precautions when outside. Wear lightweight and loose-fitting clothing. Try to limit strenuous activities to early morning or evening. Take action when you see symptoms of heat exhaustion and heat stroke. And to reduce risk there during outdoor work, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration recommends scheduling frequent breaks there in shaded or air-conditioned environments. And anyone overcome by heat should be moved to a cool and shaded location. And heat stroke is considered an emergency. You need to take action, by calling emergency, the important emergency number accordingly. So, again, we'll continue to give you the latest. Let me go ahead and keep looking here at the numbers. We're going to probably wrap it pretty soon because there's only so much you can see about the heat. But I just wanted to come on the air. I always thought here over the last few years that if we ever got to 100 in Tampa, in a position to come on the air with that, we would, because that's something folks have talked about for years. Would it ever happen? Well, history was made here this afternoon. By the way, 99 still at the sheriff's office. He's just Stark with our number of it. The sheriff's office in Stark with the number 99. We're 97 here east of Stark in Bradford County on my sensor. So as we go ahead and jump over to, again, Tampa officially reached 100 degrees for the first time in recorded history this afternoon. The information coming in there from the Weather Service in the Tampa Bay Ruskin area. Again, that's a really big deal here, obviously, and that's why we're on the air to document this as we're looking at things and as we're tracking things here. I just want to let you guys know what the storyline is with everything that is happening. So, again, just trying to go through everything here. Just trying to keep you guys up to date. It's just a one-man band trying to, check everything we can here. This is better than having, hurricane weather. That is for sure. As we're looking at things, as we're tracking things, but it still can be very dangerous. It can be, a silent killer here, sadly, kind of like flooding can be sometimes as well. You got to be really careful in these type of instances for sure as we're looking at things, as we're tracking things here in toward, the weather environment and the like. So let me go ahead and see what else we might have here. There's our area, of course, that we're always watching and always tracking for. Just outside of it, but it's such a big deal. I know as we look nationally, there's some storms to the north. Eventually we're going to have, maybe a little bit cooler come and storm acts and try to push in. I know you see, though, in Minnesota right now, there is an enhanced risk of severe weather today. There's even a tornado risk there that could, we had one earlier on that was radar indicated PDS, but we could start to see, more concern later. You saw the wind risk there in the, in toward, I'll put it back up for a sec, in toward that mustard color. You see the light green, there's a risk up north. I know generally you have more storms, which prevents you from getting into a heat wave like this, as entrenched as this is, as we're looking, as we're tracking things here. So I know this, is a situation where, again, this isn't something here with the tropics, which we are thankful for. We'll see if there's stuff in August we'll have to watch, but nothing for the rest of July, even though that's only a few more days. As we're looking and as we're tracking things here. Again, probably go to the top of the hour. I just want to make sure there's nothing else I need to talk about here with this situation. We're 97 here east of Stark on our thermometer right now. That's the latest here at the 4:55. Throw that back up here. Let's see if we get our new hourly observations in before we wrap this up. Because I was going to tell a story here where we're trending. All these it's starting to trend down, but some of them may, still be pretty nasty here as we're looking at the overall scenarios. Very important here to keep in mind. Again, just looking here. Again, 3:30 this afternoon, the historic number there in Tampa, 100 degrees. Again, just looking through a few more things here. We'll go back over to our other source. I know we're in Bradford County. That's if you're wondering why we're showing numbers out of Bradford so much. That's where, our sensor is. That's what I'm looking at here behind the scenes to put that together. Another graphic. We're looking at Tampa right now. Okay, this is a new update here at Tampa International. 453.99 still. That's impressive. I gotta wonder if within that last hour if we got to 100 again for a short bit. Between the numbers coming in on the graphics source. But I know heat index 111. That's what it feels like. That's what the heat index is about. Combining, either dew point, humidity, depending on how you want to calculate things here. It's just kind of about that moisture and the actual temperature combined, how it feels. But the new update 99 there in Tampa with the air temperature. They're at 96 in St. Petersburg. Clearwater, is that a new update? Yes, it is. Okay, up north here, Gainesville, that's the new update, 98 degrees. 97 in Williston, 97 Ocala. Just gotta make sure some of these are the newest updates. 97 Palatka here. 91, that's earlier in St. Augustine, it looks like. We're still getting some of the latest numbers to come on in. Cross City, that's from about 35 past. It's 99 there. 97 in Live Oak. 98 in Perry. Jacksonville numbers, some of those are still a little behind. 96 in Valdosta. 97 Tallahassee. Those look updated. Lake City 95 at a 435. But some of these numbers haven't updated yet in Duval, I don't think. Let me see. The airport hadn't, but I think Cecil's still okay. It looks like it's still 104. That's the new update. 98 near the river at the Naval Air Station. 99 there, Hurlon Airport. 96 Craig Municipal Airport. 93 there around Mayport. As we're looking at things and as we're tracking things here in toward the Weather Center as we give you guys the latest. I mean, there's areas in the water bodies that'll keep you a little cooler, obviously, here And as we get up north, you see all these 100-degree readings towards South Carolina. 100 around Columbia at the University of South Carolina. It is a steamer type day up there. You see, over 100, obviously the heat index and the like up there in toward that area. But see a few more thunderstorms trying to develop there as we're looking, along the Interstate 4 corridor. You see I-75 here in that vicinity, some action there around Bradenton area. When thunder roars, you gotta go indoors. You're trying to stay cool and, maybe in the air conditioning, but if you're outside in a pool or the water, and there's thunder around, you gotta get inside and away from windows. You see some lightning here just west and north of Apalachicola as we're looking. That's just that side of our area. In our area, there's not much on the radar, but that can always change with a few thunderstorms. You see some development maybe trying to take place there in southern parts of Madison County. As we're looking at things here, you see the general thunderstorm outlook here for today in that light green. That's where we could have some thunderstorms develop, but it's not a huge chance by any stretch, but could have a few isolated ones here. Normally that will cover the whole area, almost every day in summer. So for not everybody to be covered by that is, an idea, those folks, gives you that idea of what's going on here. And that is about, how we don't have as much of the storm development parameters in play today. Moisture isn't as high, but it's still high enough to make the heat index be a big factor as we're looking at things. So again, just trying to give you that update there. Broadening the view out. I know you see in Texas there's some storms here. As we look out to orders like in Arizona, they have all these 100+ readings, but the thing about it is, they're used to that, but also the heat index doesn't show up because it's a dry heat. So it actually, doesn't really feel, maybe as hot as what we're seeing around here today, even though these numbers are well into the triple digits right now at, middle of the afternoon there around Phoenix and the like. Palm Springs 105, but the humidity, the 10%, dew point 37. So that's kind of the storyline there. As we give you guys the very latest here. I think we're about to wrap it on up, but we just got a new update. So let me go ahead and check on something here. Just got a new update on our thermometer. I mean, we keep getting them instantaneous, but it's actually changed. So it's time to pull the full graphic on in here. And what we have right now is 98 degrees in eastern Bradford County. So getting back up. We had 99 here about 40 minutes ago or so. But then we dropped it about 96, but now 98 degrees here in eastern Bradford County. As that number fluctuates just a little bit. That's how it is. Like we saw these numbers here, the hourly observations. I mean, there's a decent chance, that we've had, some of these numbers here. I mean, not just a decent chance. I'm sure it's happened. Some numbers are going to go up here in between and then bounce back down for the hourly update. So it's kind of tricky in that regard. I mean, the airport in Tampa, the numbers for the 2 hourly updates were 99, but in between they got 100 at about 3:30 this afternoon. So again, that's kind of the storyline there as we're looking, as we're tracking. We're 98.1 right now, to be precise there, east of Stark on our thermometer. As we saw you though earlier on, Tampa, they officially reached 100 degrees for the first time in recorded history. The record go back since 1890. So that truly is remarkable here as we're looking at things, as we're tracking things here in toward the Weather Center. But I think we've pretty much covered enough about this for now. There's only so much you can say about the heat. Sometimes kind of iterating things for new viewers here, but we're always on the different platforms: Facebook, Casey Cloud Reacts, Cloud Weather, Twitter /@CloudCasey. And if you haven't subscribed already on YouTube, do that now. That's free, youtube.com/@CloudWeather. As you're looking over there, if you're watching me live, one of the features of that platform is you can actually, on the DVR functionality, just back things up and see what I said 5 or 10 minutes ago if you missed something I said, and I don't circle back to it. So that's something cool about YouTube. youtube.com/@CloudsWeather. So it's youtube.com and then the slash and then what you have on the screen there, the @ symbol, Clouds Weather. So You also have Twitch there, Cloud Weather, and Cloudweather.com. So Cloudweather.com has the different links available, has an interactive radar available. You can look at the model guidance there. You can look at my forecast from like Thursday there. You know, the 7-day forecast I had then. I mean, it hadn't changed too much, but it's far enough out. I don't think I want to pull it up on here because you haven't had a chance to double check some stuff. But I think it could be a little bit warmer tomorrow, even by a degree or two. So you just gotta continue to track things here. Continue to watch things as we're looking at the situation. I know, you know, it could be 101 is what I'm thinking for tomorrow. Heat index, though, getting a good bit higher than that even. Could have a few scattered Saturday, but Tuesday, Wednesday, quite a bit higher chance of that. You know, as we start to rate the heat wave some, we have more storms, and some of this could be pretty volatile, pretty nasty. So you gotta remain alert for that. Of course, we'll be watching things tomorrow, and if needed, we'll break back in tomorrow. And may or may not, you know, extreme heat warning only for a small sliver of the area. So we'll just play it by ear. If we need to break in tomorrow, we will. You know, but otherwise, we'll be breaking in here, you know, as warranted for severe warnings here. You know, as that becomes a bigger story again, if and as warranted on the different platforms, and our formal update, you know, rolls around again, the next one, late Tuesday, early Wednesday. So make sure you're tuning in for that here as we're looking at things and we're tracking things. So that's important to keep in mind here, for sure, as the situation does transpire here. It's very important to keep in mind as we look at everything here meteorologically. See if there's any questions, comments from any new viewers here or any existing viewers over the last little bit. I don't see anything else, but it's definitely a hot day, a dangerously hot day. You gotta take it seriously. I mean, but when I say that, as long as you're in the air conditioning, you know, you should be good to go, long as that, you know, keeps working. You know, you'll probably be all right. So it's not like a, you know, winter storm. If there's ice in the road, you know, granted, you know, could have a few issues with roads because of the heat just being so much for them. But in general, you know, it's not like that. It's not like a tornado for sure or hurricane. So that's the good news. So that's about all we can see on the heat right now. Well, real quick, I will say it's up to 99 now again. It's dark. I gotta wonder. I may give it a few more seconds. I don't want to give it much longer because it's been on for a while, but see if it starts to dip again. But we're back up to 99 now. Our center east is dark, so that's something. And I shouldn't have poured it up that way, but you get the idea. As we're looking here, I'll take our platform information off and then pull that full again. That's what it is, you know, here. This is how it is. We're just a one-man band, but 99 degrees here in eastern Bradford County. As we're looking at things, as we're tracking things, let me check the Bradford weather stem again at the sheriff's office. We'll check that number. They're down to 98.4, so they're fluctuating back downward on their weather station. We're now 99.1, so if we get a 99.5, that means it's 100, because that's how it works here. You round up with these type of numbers, you know, or round down. If it's 0.4 or below, you round down. 0.5 and above, you round up. Kind of like grades there in a classroom. I mean, I have my thing set where I can see the decimals. A lot of folks will just have it where it rounds up automatically, but I like to see the decimal changes here so you know it's live and you get the second by seconds updates here behind the scenes. 99.2. So we're 3/10 of a degree away from getting to 100 for the first time this year here in eastern Bradford County. 3/10 of a degree away from getting to that rounding point where you officially would have 100 as we're looking at things and as we're tracking things. Very intriguing here. Looking back here at last summer, I'm going through some things here. We had some, you know, hot readings here. We've gotten 100 here and there over the years, but not a lot on my weather station. It's only happened a handful of times. 99.2, so get 99.5, that makes it 100 technically. I know it seems a little weird, but that's how it works because you're not really looking at the decimals here on the graphics, but I can see that internally. 99.1 now. 99.1 here east is dark. This isn't exactly an accomplishment, but it's interesting to see if we can actually get to 100 here. That's what we had in the forecast. Of course, we're covering whole area. We're not quite there. Yesterday, we were 1 degree above the forecast. I had 97 for yesterday. Got to 98 here. East is dark, and the day before, we had 94, and we hit it right on the dot. So 99.2 again. Feels like 119, but we have pond in the vicinity. That makes it a little more humid. It's dangerously hot out there. Just seeing if we get to 99.5, which again would get us to 100. You know, we obviously, if this is on like television, we wouldn't stay on for this, but I think it's just something that's kind of intriguing here meteorologically to let you guys know about here as we're looking at things, as we're tracking things here in the Weather Center. We'll take this full graphic off for a second because, you know, this doesn't automatically update, so me leaving that on there doesn't do a whole bunch of good after a while, but it's good to kind of convey the story. But just so you look outside where we're at, it does look hot, doesn't it? It does look hot. I mean, but, you know, if you didn't know any better, I mean, you could look at that and say, well, there aren't enough clouds around, so maybe, you know, shouldn't really be 100, but we're close to it. 99.3 degrees now here in eastern Bradford County. As we're looking and as we're tracking things. Let's give you the latest. Just trying to give you the latest here. Bear with me. I'm just updating some stuff here. Just checking some things here before I put them up on the screen. So yeah, there's your current temp 99, some dangerous heat concern. 99.3, 99.4 we got there for just a second when I looked away. 99.5 will get us to 100, so that's kind of the storyline right now. Yeah, 99 here where we're at, where this camera side is from. That's what we're down with right now. So we're just looking at everything. I mean, 104 at Cecil is really, really impressive there. Another spot, you know, is more favorable for that. Getting hotter than other spots or colder than other spots. Again, we're just really staying with this for a few more seconds, minutes, whatever, to see if we get to 99.5, which would officially get us to 100 here for the first time this year, 2025. It may happen. If it doesn't happen today, tomorrow, even more likely, assuming we don't get some convection to knock us down, but could get to 101 even. That's what I had in the forecast. 100 for today, 101 for tomorrow. Just hovering. We're literally 1/10 of a degree below what we need to get to 100 because of the rounding. It's 99.4. Now again, 99.5 gets us to 100 for the first time in 2025. Again, it doesn't happen very often, but it does happen here. Has happened a few times on this, unlike what happened in Tampa. It never happened on that official side until today. A few spots around, maybe so, you know, unofficial. Technically, my number would be unofficial, I guess you could say, but I know we have AJ watching in Tallahassee. He says it's scorching hot there in Tallahassee right now. Definitely nasty heat there in our area and in Leon County as well. Well, we just dropped to 99.2, so, you know, that got to 99.4 for a second. That's the peak. 50% humidity. as we're tracking things. Again, still with you. Just seeing if we get to that 99.5 because that rounds to 100. 99.4 doesn't. And it's 99.2 now. As we're looking and as we're tracking things. I mean, there's probably other spots. I can look at some of the other sensors while we leave this up because I'm not giving you a whole bunch with this right now. I know that sun sometimes, that plays a factor in some of the different, readings here and the like as we're looking at things, as we're tracking things here across the region. Football practices. Yeah, that's something where when that sun's out, that makes it even feel more dangerous here. And that becomes even more of a problem for folks, and different things have to change with those, and we get hotter and hotter for sure. I'm going to check some other sites here. Not too far away from me, there's a site, 97 degrees. I know these numbers aren't official, but there's some stuff I can pull up behind the scenes. I'm just checking them. See if anybody has hit 100. They might have hit it at the sheriff's office at one point there. But I know it's been a 99 every time I actually checked it on the fly there. They're 99.1 right now at the sheriff's office in Stark. Site close by there. 99.7. I don't know where some of these other sites, these are more unofficial I'm looking at now. That means it's 100 there near West Madison Street. Again, this information I'm telling you, other than sheriff's office and mine, the other sites you saw on the screen are all official. The sheriff's office and mine, especially mine, a little less official, but it's in a ideal spot. I'm comfortable with the ratings that I give, but some of these others, I don't know where they are, but do have 100 near West Madison Street. 96, though, not too far away from me. 97 on another one. 98 on another one closer to Hampton. So, looking at some things, only 94 up in northern Bradford County. So again, that's kind of the storyline right now. You don't see too much of a breeze. I see 1 mile per hour on my gauge here. Not much of a breeze. So as we're looking at things, as we're tracking things here, if you had that, it would, cool down some potentially. As we're tracking things. So again, we're lucky we don't have more of a drought because as we're looking across the area too, this heat could really be a lot bigger deal if we did. We had some 100 type degree readings to 99. We had all those fires around looking back at the record books, and we're lucky that we had got enough rain in most spots. Otherwise, this could be more concerning. Still could be issues, though, here or there, because it'd be kind of hard to fight fires in this weather. But, we're going to get storm action here not too far away, especially on Tuesday here in that forecast. So I think it's down to 98.8. We definitely could get back up there the way it fluctuates, but we dropped enough where I don't think we need to stick with this any longer. So that's kind of the storyline there as we're looking and as we're tracking things. I appreciate everybody tuning in here and trusting me this afternoon. We're going to go ahead and wrap it up, I think. If you guys have any more questions, comments, next few seconds, just go ahead and put them in here. But otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up here. If you came on because of that 100 degree reading in Tampa, that was the main reason. First time ever recorded there. And we stuck with it to talk about everything going on. Such a historic scenario there. And continue to watch this heat across our area, giving you the latest on that here too. So that's going to do it. Thanks so much for tuning in. Stay safe out there. And stay cool. That's definitely, important here as we're looking. It's about staying cool. Those light-colored, loose-fitting clothes important if you're having to be outside. That's what's more ideal. I know somebody else saying it's just summer, sir, but we have a comment over on YouTube now, a new comment there, but it's just a little bit of an enhancement here from what we generally see, or in Tampa's case, for the first time ever. A big departure. So that's something that is worth noting here for sure. When I say big, 1 degree isn't big, but going to the century mark for the first time ever, that is a big deal here. Something we've talked about, meteorology folks for years, meteorologists for years saying, will they ever get there? with the Gulf of Mexico, the influence of that. Will they ever get to 100 degrees on the sensor? What happened today? I mean, that's something that's not as bad as, there's still the thought, even though Milton did happen last year, they didn't get a direct hit in Tampa. About 100 years ago, the last direct hit from a hurricane. Let's hope that doesn't happen again, because that would be a lot bigger deal than this. This is nothing compared to that. If they were to get a direct hurricane hit on Tampa like they did about 100 years ago or so, because it's hard for that to happen. Milton came close and caused big problems. Obviously, there with Tropicana Field and the like, and other spots there, the newspaper there in Tampa as well, and other neighborhoods, and down toward the south, even worse. But in Tampa proper, it wasn't a direct hit on them. Irma was, not a direct hit either in 2017, but in 1920s, I believe it was, they had that direct hit, and it was so catastrophic. And that had happened in recorded history, but it's been a while. There's been a thought here, will that ever happen again? Will that ever happen again? Well, if that does happen again, that'd be really, really bad, compared to this. This isn't that big of a deal at all in comparison to that. 98.9 now on my sensor. Stay safe. Stay cool. Thanks for tuning in.